George, how many years have you been buying and selling Rolex?
I started doing this professionally in 2006, so you can do the math.
Okay, for a while now. So
For a while now.
It's safe to say that you've seen it all.
I would like to think so, yes.
I think so too. So today we're going to broach a very confusing topic, especially if you're new to the watch world. We're talking about why specific Rolex models, same model, everything kind of looks the same, but why they are priced so differently. There's three main points we're going to hit on so you can feel confident when shopping for pre-owned Rolex. And then we're also going to cover a topic that people think is really important into the pricing. It actually doesn't affect it that much, so stay tuned. You're shopping for a Rolex model, really any watch model, but we're talking about Rolex today. You're looking at the same watches and they're dramatically different in price.
Yeah.
So three things that affect that price that we're going to go over today. First is condition. So George, kind of talk to us about why the condition is so important.
Condition is kind of everything with these watches, especially in cases where you see two very, very similar looking watches and there is a large price difference.
Right.
That is all about condition. These watches have lived a life. They've gone out and done things, and the condition will be representative of that life it's led. I personally don't mind what we call patina. An honest patina of usage is fine in these watches, not abuse.
Yeah.
I think that's a fine line. But every once in a while, you find this truly sock drawer piece. You find this watch that you will never hear me say new. When it comes to secondary market product. Mint will be hard to get out of my lips. I'd much rather say it's in excellent condition, have you tell me it's in mint. That's just the way I work our business here, but you'll find this extraordinarily conditioned watch. And that's why you'll see a premium. And that can be as much as 20, 30, 50%, depending on the watch.
Let's talk about, so the two watches we have here today inspired this whole conversation because of the condition.
Yeah.
So let's give an example because we've got the Rolex, the Bluesy here in front of us, the Submariner. Let's just talk about condition before we get into patina or anything else.
Sure. So when I'm looking at these two watches right off the bat, the first thing you'll see is the horns of the watch, if you will. There should be a crisp bevel on those. One of these has it, the other one doesn't. Now, in our defense, these are slightly different references. They are separated by a couple of years. But this watch in particular is in, near mint condition. Excellent condition, however you want to term that. It's a little bit newer model than this one, but in terms of condition, they are light years apart. This other one, as you take it off the cuff, the first thing you'll notice is things like this. You will see how much the bracelet deflects from straight. All of these inner links are hollow, and over time they will stress and they will stretch. So that's what we actually call it. We call it stretch within the watch, and this has got some pretty decent stretch on it. All of the edges are soft. It's been polished more than once over the life of the watch. It's running fine, but this is what I would call a well-used watch. This watch has lived a life. You can hear it in the watch itself, where this one here will be much quieter.
And let's talk a little bit about the polishing, because you mentioned that. There's a difference in polishing from Rolex, right? There's a difference in well-done polishing, and then there's also a difference in not so well-done polishing, and that's something we can tell, right, as experienced buyers.
Absolutely. There's a big difference between professional polishing, home polishing, over-polishing, and where you'll see it the most on something like this are going to be the flatter planes on these high-polished edges. As you polish it, you're taking off metal. And I have clients and friends who every time they get a scratch on their watch, like, oh, can you polish it? No. Please don't do that to your watch. Every time you're taking off metal, every time you're softening an edge, and over time, you're going to have a pretty round watch. On the flat planes, you'll get a wave in it eventually. So you want to do it sparingly. I like to polish my watches personally, along with a service, and then maybe once every year and a half.
Yeah.
And then I have somebody like our master watchmaker here is Benjamin Lamb. Without equivocation, I'll say he's one of the best in the business. Very soft hand when it comes to polishing. He's going to take away the least metal possible. I have clients who will take a Dremel to their watch and just take them off at home. And
Ben, it's worth noting, has probably over 40 years of watchmaking experience. He just went to a class for a full week that was just focused on polishing, and even then he wants to learn more. So it's really hard.
There's an art to it, for sure.
Let's talk about the patina, because this can have both a positive and more of a negative effect on price, right?
Yeah, I am a patina hound. I love these old aluminum bezel Rolexes particularly. because they will scratch, they will fade, they will represent the lives they have lived, and I really like that. Maybe it's being an older guy too.
When is it good and when is it considered not good?
For a guy like me, patina up to the point of damage is a real positive. Now, there are certain watches within the Rolex lexicon that will change dramatically over time. They are 2-year dials, multiple year bezels, where depending on the lives they've lived, they'll fade out to some amazing colors. The bluesy in particular, be it in gold or Rolex, there were a couple of years, I think 90, 91, maybe 92, where the dials turned purple over time.
And that's what sparked this whole conversation, because we had one and we said, great, we have all 3 in store, and then it sold. But we have photos we'll share. And that's an example of patina increasing the value
absolutely,
of the watch, right?
Absolutely. You'll see it, Patrizia Daytonas. You have these ones where the chapter rings from the chronograph will turn this oily brown color. Beautiful. Then there's the Explorers. There were a couple of years of the white dial Explorer that will turn cream. Those are all easy examples, but there was one in particular. There was a client out of Florida who had a Pepsi that had gone to baby blue and fuchsia on the bezel. I wanted that watch so bad, and we just couldn't quite work out the deal. But those are the cool examples of things that can happen over the life of your Rolex.
Are there examples in the Rolex world where patina will decrease the price or make it less valuable?
I think so. You get, particularly on Submariners and Sea Dwellers, you get starlight dials, spider cracks, things of that nature. And up to a certain point, they're beautiful and might increase the value. Over time, that's going to end up damaging the watch. That's where you're really walking a fine line. I'm going to get really particular on those, because if that dial starts to flake off and get in the movement, it can get bad.
We switched over to the other side very quickly.
Yeah. It's a fine line.
The patina has to do with desirability.
Sure.
And what the demand is of the market. I think that's a safe place to land.
And there is a level of rareness as well, I think, that plays in. People want the things that the other guy doesn't have.
Number 2 is completeness, and this is very important in the Rolex world. This covers quite a few topics, including box and papers. So let's start there.
Yeah, particularly Rolex, Patek, some of the big boy pieces. The collectors really want it as complete as possible. I think that's only been in the past couple of decades it's really become important. Right. And I think it stems from these older watches. 50 years ago, nobody knew that 50 years later, a guy like me would be poring over every little nook and cranny in the box.
Yes.
So a lot of them weren't.
Especially for older models, more vintage. The older you go back, I mean, the more rare it is to have
everything.
Box and papers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have some examples. Watches that are coming from like the 60s and 70s, where not only is it complete, and by that I mean every drop tag, every bezel protector, every bit of paperwork it's supposed to have, the proper wallet. There were times when Rolex came with swag. Yeah. There were like literal wallets, passport holders, whatever it's supposed to come with. There were different anchors for different Submariners over the years, but I've had them where someone kept the original receipt.
Right.
And that kind of historical significance, I think, is really, really important to guys like myself, and then the guy I want to sell it to. So the more complete, the better, for sure.
Yeah. Would you say, we used to say at one point that box and papers affected the price by about 10%. Do you still feel confident saying that?
I still feel that's about right.
Okay.
And it's weird. When I take a watch in, is box and papers important? Yeah, it is. A lot of people will equate box and papers with authenticity.
I was going to ask that too. And is that a fair statement? Because it's sort of hard to say now. There's a lot of good fakes.
That's it. There. And if you can fake watches, how well these guys fake watches now, box and papers are easy.
Yeah.
So grain of salt there, but it is another layer of things for me to detect. Another thing you can think about too, and one thing I actually like to see is, through the history of the watch, these things may or may not go back to Rolex for service.
Right.
I like service paperwork. I don't think a lot of guys are taking the time to fake service paperwork. And then in the case of like a Patek Philippe, you can have original box and papers. Patek is one of the few companies that will do an excerpt from the archives. They'll do archival paperwork. I almost like archival better. For one thing, archival will give you the date of manufacture and the date of purchase, which I like. I like having a real year on the watch. And again, I just don't think anybody's bothering to fake archives.
And number 3, we're going to talk about the year or the age of the watch, which at times I think consumers get more into than it really is as far as importance. But George is going to break that down for us because it's a complex idea.
Yeah, and here's the deal, guys. Rolex has never printed any list of the ages of their watch via any sourcing. So anytime you see a list of X serial equals this year,
Right.
big grain of salt, because what that is it's a group of guys like me over decades looking at cards, looking at receipts and going, okay, this has this serial number, it was purchased in this year.
Right.
And where that gets really gray and muddy is especially in the years where Rolex was not selling every single watch that came into their possession. It could take up to a year and a half for that watch to sell.
Sure.
So you see
Longer.
that date and you think date of manufacture, and plus or minus 18 months, guys. I mean, really, if you're looking for a birth year 1981 and you come across an 80 that you like, buy it. It is absolutely fine with that. Like I said, Rolex has never put out this information, so it's all kind of muddy. We call this one a 98, we call this one a 2003, but that's murky. It's murky at best. So don't put too much stock into it. I would focus on condition way more than year.
Okay.
And buy what you like. I think that's really important. I think that gets overlooked a lot.
And let's just briefly touch on the evolution of the watch over the years. Say they've increased the size a little bit, or they've changed the movement.
Sure.
And how that comes into play.
Yeah, year over year, Rolex doesn't really reinvent the wheel, but they massage it real hard. And there are some evolutionary jumps, and there's some subtle jumps. Like there's a subtle jump right here between these two watches. So again, might be a little bit of an unfair, but I really wanted to talk on the condition of these two. I had a good example. There was a client who came in who was wondering why my watch is so expensive when he can buy it so much cheaper somewhere else. I was talking about a modern ceramic Submariner, not the 41, the 40, and he was seeing pricing for the aluminum. And we had a discussion on price, and he said, I can get it much cheaper. I said, no, you can't. And he bought it and came in to show it to me, and it's like, no, I told you, it's a completely different watch. Now, that's going down the rabbit hole a little bit, but you know what? I want to put this out to you guys too. As you're negotiating these Cs, we're here to be consultants. I mean, yes, I'm a salesman. Yes, it's how we make our money, but the last thing I want you to do is make a mistake. So if you're looking at something, you have a question, reach out. We're here. We're here to help every single day. It's what we do here at Oliver Smith. So keep that in mind as well as you're trying to navigate all this stuff.
So George, in the end, is it safe to say condition is the most important?
Yeah, I think that's where I would land. Condition. Depending on what makes your heart sing. Like I said, I don't mind some patina, but if that's what you're looking for, just try to find the best example within your price range, and I think it'll be just fine.
There are so many stories around Rolex and different purchase prices and what's happened to different people out there. So we'd love to hear from you. If you have a story, leave it in the comments below. We'll make sure to read it, comment back if we can, and make sure to like and subscribe. If you like our content, it really helps out with the channel.